Well, to be too, capital G here, looking at a new card that just got revealed. This is coming out of Cybernetic Horizon. I believe that this card got revealed actually last week, but there was so much stuff going on over the weekend with me streaming on Saturday and then the YCS coverage that I was reading on Sunday. So just really wasn't enough time for me to kind of squeeze this in over the weekend. But I want to talk about this card because it has huge potential, and I don't think that we have seen a card with a significant upside quite like this in some time. I mean, it seems like it has one of the highest ceilings of any cards that has been or that have been revealed in the entire Vrain's era. Very similar to something like Card of Demise, where this is a card that can basically let you +2 and give you 3 cards to your hand, which, you know, it sounds kind of like absolutely exceptional. But just like Card of Demise, there are some significant drawbacks that are not quite as appealing as you'd like them. But anyways, let's go ahead and talk about the card. So it's Seer's Passbook. It's a normal spell that says banish 3 cards from the top of your deck face down during your 3rd standby phase after this card's activation. Add those 3 banished cards to your hand. You can only activate 1 Seer's Passbook per turn, so it's a hard once per turn, no matter how many copies of Seer's Passbook you actually have. It's really ironic, right? A lot of newer players won't get this. If you weren't playing during the GX era, you might not understand this, but it's really crazy that this seems like a card that's very, very powerful and could definitely easily get overhyped, and that's the exact spirit of something like Crystal Seer. If you guys don't know what Crystal Seer is, it's the card in the art. It's the card that, you know, this card is basically named after. Crystal Seer came out in GX, and people thought it was going to revolutionize Apprentice Monarchs because you could summon it with Apprentice, and people were like, oh my goodness, this is going to power creep old Vindictive, and Magician of Faith won't be necessary anymore. You get to summon this Crystal Seer, set it, and then you get 2 cards to look at, pick one, and it just never really took off. And I don't know, I feel like maybe Konami is keeping that overhyped spirit with this card, but I actually think that this card is pretty good. Now, the elephant in the room is obvious. This card is freaking slow. It is comparable to something like Card of Demise, but Card of Demise is what I like to call that instant, gratification. The fact that Card of Demise is supposed to be a card that has a very high ceiling, which it does, you know, letting you draw 3 cards, but at the cost of like no special summoning and no battle damage, and you got to get rid of your entire hand by the end phase. But we originally thought Card of Demise was just going to be used for like these kind of stunish type decks, the Yosenjus and, you know, the counter fairies of the world, but then it started being played in like True Draco, and that won a YCS and shit. So I don't know, I kind of feel like Card of Demise is extremely good. We all know that, and it might end up getting hit. Seer's Passbook, I think that the speed of the card is really what's going to hurt it, and it's a shame because Konami has released cards like this over, like, they've released these cards periodically. I think that this card could be comparable also to something like Shard of Greed, which is a card that is a +1, but it also kind of makes you wait a couple of turns. Now, the fact that you banish the cards face down, I actually think that that's a double-edged sword, right? So you look at that and you think, okay, it's obviously good. Your opponent doesn't get the free information of knowing the cards that you banish, and that is definitely true. You wouldn't want them to know that. We've learned through Pot of Desires that you actually do get to see the cards. The problem is, it doesn't actually trigger any of the monsters that are banished. So if it did actually banish face up, that would trigger things like Giant Rex and, you know, Necrophase shenanigans. You'd also have like Shiranui Spirit Master. So I could even see like 60 card variants running the card easily if it would have banished faced up. And I don't know, who knows, maybe 60 card variants can actually run this card because the pluses with this card are still like ridiculous. I just think that you will probably see this deck, or you'll probably see this card played in niche decks, although I kind of feel like there's a potential for this to be played somewhat like Card of Demise, because I don't know if Card of Demise is long for this world. I believe Card of Demise got semi-limited in the OCG, and I could definitely see, especially if True Draco end up like winning the North American WCQ, or if they win the next YCS in New Jersey, I could definitely see Card of Demise end up getting limited in the TCG, and then you have this as maybe like a pseudo replacement. There are some decks that I think this card would fit really well in, and you wouldn't have to change much of anything. Chainburn would be an example of that, because when you think about this card, right? So the best application is essentially if you can kind of stall for a couple of turns after this card's activation. Maybe the neg 1 doesn't really mean that much. I think I just kind of described Chainburn's natural playstyle, right? Chainburn is a deck that it can handle taking a neg 1 because there are things like Card D, which, yeah, can still be running Chainburn that can easily plus. And at the same time, Chainburn naturally stalls for turns anyways because you're not really doing battle damage with your monsters and you're basically ignoring your opponent's monsters. So Chainburn stalling for a couple of turns turns is in their natural playstyle. Look at things like look at things like Wabaku, Threatening Roar, Battle Fader, Swift Scarecrow, all the star cards, all these stall cards that they already run. I think that this card basically would be a win condition for them, very similar to like Card of Demise, but this card cannot be Ash Blossomed, unlike Card of Demise. So you activate this turn 1. If you're playing Chainburn, you stall for a couple of turns, and then in that third turn, not only do you get your draw phase, but then you get 3 more cards on top of that. Like, dude, you just got 4 cards that turn. You should probably be able to kill your opponent during that turn. And if you get this turn 1, you're basically telling your opponent, like, you better kill me before turn 3, otherwise this duel is over. I'm gonna have way too much burn cards, and I'm just gonna kill your ass. Chainburn can also play like One Day of Peace, which is kind of like another stall type card for a turn, and it gives them a draw. So I do think that this card does have some applications. I think you could also play it in those Banished decks. The Banished decks also kind of stall. They do it in a different way. Basically, they use Soul Absorption to get like 5 trillion life points, and you can essentially kill them. Not only would this add more damage with Grand Maju because it does banish cards, but at the same time, it actually counts for Soul Absorption because it does banish 3 cards. So they can gain life points, they can gain damage, and then if you don't finish them off before they, resolve this card, then they get 3 more cards, and maybe they end up getting something really powerful, a DDR, or something to get to their Grand Maju, and they can just like one-shot you. So this card, it's very good, and I kind of wish Konami would design more cards like this, less of the instant gratification of Pot of Desires and Card of Demise, more cards kind of like this, and kind of like the Shard of Greed, where maybe you have to wait a turn, but then you get like a really broken effect. I hope that this card does see play. I just think that the speed element will kind of turn people off, but if Card of Demise it does end up getting hit, I think that this could be a card that a lot of people start looking at. So you guys let me know what you think of Seer's Passbook. Leave it in the comment section below. Thank you guys for watching. As always, subscribe if you have not already. Turn on that notification bell for daily videos.